A General Idea of Revolution, written by Gabriel Amadej, read by Stephen Leger. As participants in an emancipatory project, we resist the strain of security, the disordering of society through the force of arbitrary power. We contest that social order is designed around society, as plutocrats would have it. Instead, it is born within society through healthy social units. Though institutions are manifested within the bonds of society, justifications for governmentalism appeal to its external constitution, that it can shape the nature of human relations while standing divorced from them. We reject this absurdity. Government plays a role in shaping the character of society, but as a social institution, it cannot define society from the outside. Government is not an external watchmaker, but a property of society, a property that stands in relation to society's whole. If it weren't constructed in this way, the problem of political authority would resolve itself. No government would reign because it would fail to enter our social reality. If government sows order into the social fabric, then let it justify itself without this appeal to external constitution. An orderly society is one that is internally coherent. So I ask, do governmental structures strengthen or weaken this coherence? As anarchists, we assert the latter. For an antagonism exists between the interest of society and the classes ruling over it. Rulers insulated from the rest of society can't know of our needs or even empathize with them. How should the governed respond to dictates that are senseless to their local situation? Grit their teeth and bear it? Such a strong pressure of authority can only be exercised so much. We know from Belgarigue, a government is set up. It has its servants, and as a result, its supporters. And the moment that it has its supporters, it has its adversaries too. Once a government is in place, the favoritism that is the basis of privilege and which provokes division, spawns antagonism, and civil strife becomes inevitable. Anarchist Manifesto. As it is a catalyst for antagonism and civil war, governmentalism fails to be a solution to disorder. The character of our revolution. Those with a revolutionary aim detest the status quo, but most limit themselves by failing to reject governmentalism. We are not so terrified. The task before us is then to organize always with the aid of the new principle, the economic forces, and to lay down the law of property, to dissolve, submerge, and cause to disappear the political or governmental system in the economic system, by reducing, simplifying, and suppressing, one after another, all the wheels of this great machine, which is called the government, or the state. Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, The General Idea of the Revolution in the 19th Century, 1851. We shouldn't forget that Proudhon's mutual bank was meant to subvert the government's ability to tax and regulate by phasing out the franc for free credit. It was an early construction of counter-economic theory, a precursor to the philosophy of agorism. Gratuitous credit, along with Proudhon's federalism, was the inspiration for what later became syndicalism. We can route these developments back to their Proudhonian origin through a praxis philosophy of agora-syndicalism. In a word, an insurgent marketplace of political goods, labor syndicates, entrepreneurial webworks, agitation cells, solidarity associations, etc. Set apart in their interests, but informally organized through a revolutionary praxis. Everyday people exchanging their political livelihoods within a surrounding network of counter-economic affiliations. With industrial collectives purposed to shake the foundations of our economic deprivation. That includes existing property relations, barriers to capital, the corporate command economy, and even subpar elements of the revolution itself. Because our project is just as much eliminative as it is constructive. We cannot achieve anarchism without striking the root of hierarchy and governmentalism. But our economy cannot exist undistorted by the outside economy. We'll route around the damage and adapt accordingly. A strategic tempo play should we outpace the forces of plutocracy. This is an active counter-society, amassing political resources to later agitate capitalist hierarchies. A meta-free market economy that is fluent in its lower-order functions, i.e., our day-to-day exchange activities, but is robust in its higher-order functions, the open space of social experimentation that we desire. Our ground economy is ephemeral in form. It welcomes the pressure of political competition and improves in response to it. Our mission and how we'll succeed. 1. Seize the means of production for the laborer, the craftsman, to deliver it into the hands of the producer herself. Reserve for the laborer the normative right to the product of her labor, but not the capitalist the descriptive right to the product of her capital. The right of increase, a privilege secured through historic violence. Once we eliminate this privilege, the capitalist will be forced to sell her labor, and when there is nothing but labor with which to buy labor, she'll be but a laborer exchanging with fellow laborers. Instead of participating in diplomatic labor bureaucracies that serve capitalism, we'll exploit revolutionary opportunities in the vein of syndicalism. This can mean wildcat unions following the historical precedent set by the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW. As popular unions are forces of stagnation declawed to restore industrial peace, truly effective labor struggle is illegal in most cases. But we have in our arsenal answers to this conundrum. First, bridge syndicalist organizations with insurgent illegalism, and, wherever possible, through whatever means available, ignore arbitrary laws and grease the wheels of industrial war. Second, use ever-evolving digital tools to make information warfare. Information-based sabotage is one such tactic. Any person can write up an exposition on the inner workings of the conglomerate that owns them, and host it anonymously on their very own I Hate My Boss domain. This not only empowers consumers to make active, informed decisions, but in parallel to open-mouth sabotage, it gets consumers on our side. 2. Free the market economy from capitalism, the long-standing product of state-secured privilege and violence. The forces of plutocracy have outpaced the forces of progress, the ones that trend toward anarchy. From before the Industrial Revolution onward, and through nefarious means. Expropriation of the commons, in the early modern era, followed by a series of enclosure acts, preferential land grants in the colonial period, exclusion of natural homesteading, acts of eminent domain, zoning code restrictions, municipal development programs, etc., all purposed to concentrate land into the hands of an ownership class that reserves the sole privilege to accumulate capital. Laborers were forced into an artificial buyer's market dictated by the employer's terms, then kept capital starved through regulatory barriers to credit. To eclipse capitalism, we must exploit the revolutionary potential of the growing information economy. We are seeing a disruption of the manifest destiny heralded by nation-states, an unforeseen contingency that has soiled their post-historic narrative. Every day, people are gaining access to tools of political disruption, and through the internet, their solicitation cannot be stopped. What it means. This means we can short-circuit the political programs dreamed up by progressive-minded bureaucrats. Cody Wilson, famous for his involvement in constructing the first 3D printed gun, effectively killed the gun control debate by publishing a tool of symbolic terrorism, an unlicensed digital firearm that we can, more or less, assemble from our laptops. Wilson's project heralds not just open access to guns, but to products traditionally commanded by large-scale manufacturers. This allows us to threaten the raison d'etre of high capital and smash capitalism by universalizing free competition. The means of digital manufacturing are becoming exponentially cheap, which will allow everyday people to participate in the production process at near zero marginal cost. Will facilitate the spread of cryptocurrencies should we bypass the privileged banking cartels and strike a blow to the state monopoly on money that deprives us of free credit. When made desperate and capital-starved, we become willing to work for wages that fail to compensate us for our subjective labor effort. We'll use information networks to coordinate the insurance that will eclipse the state. As ephemeral groups, we are difficult to destroy because we can route around the damage and swarm again. While we thrive in dynamic environments, our enemies require a measurable stability that is beyond their means. We have them trapped in a lopsided war of attrition. Empowered by these means, we shall build the structure of the new society within the shell of the old.